Pink Girly here. Today I'm going to finish up my dry brushing project. I have my brushes dried out. I tried to purchase some new brushes. I'm having a difficult time. I found some online that I think would probably work, but to be quite honest with you, I don't really do a lot in ceramics anymore, and I really hated to spend my craft dollars for brushes that I really won't use very often. So I'm trying to make do with older brushes that I have, but I did have a chance to run into AC Moore last night, and I picked up just a little inexpensive pack because I thought this looked like what I could use. But this is a real soft white bristle brush, and it'll be okay for craft projects, but it's really not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for and using with the dry brush project, where's my camera? Oh, there I am, is something like this. I don't know if you can really see that. Let me put it up against this. And then it occurred to me today, oh, maybe there's something written on the brush. Well, my one brush looks like this, because I've said in other videos I'm very hard on my brushes, and see, I let that one sit in the water too long, and the outside paint cover with the name on of the brush on it, you know, just all fell off. But this one I can make out, and this one is an Eterna Grumbacher number 4, and I think it says, I don't know if you can see it any better than I can. It looks like 5-9 or 5S2S. And of course you can see where these bristles have kind of broken down over the years. I mean, I use these babies a lot when I was heavy into ceramics and doing craft shows and taking ceramic pieces with me. This is also a Grumbacher, and I think they were a little longer. See this one here that's not, that you can't tell what it is anymore? See how long those bristles are? So it's kind of like an oxymoron, I guess. I mean, the bristles are stiff but flexible. So you really have, you know, some control and some movement to be able to dry brush. Now I worked on the piece and just left a few spots where I can show you how I'm going to finish it up. But when I was in AC Moore last night and looked for this type of brush, they're just not, they didn't have the Grumbacher brand, and they didn't have brushes that look this nice. I mean, they almost look like brooms on the end. You know, I didn't think that would work for me. Now, I did Google a little while back because Duncan Paints, when I worked in ceramics and I took my certification class and stuff, it was run by Duncan. So this is a Duncan brush, and you can get these, I believe, online or maybe through Amazon. But there again, you know, by the time you buy a whole set of them, you can't buy just like one brush. I'm not going to do any ceramic work in the near future, as far as I know. So, see, this is my old Duncan number 8. It says Duncan on here. And again, you can see that that's all broken down and shorter than it was. Look at the dust coming out of it. And look, see? Look. But this is too big for the piece that I'm working on, this little Thanksgiving gal. But if you have these brushes, if you're really into ceramics and you do a lot of ceramic work and you like the dry brushing technique, you know, these are wonderful to have those brushes. I mean, I love the brushes. I just, for my life right now, it's just not what I'm into. So here's my little Thanksgiving gal, and I did a little bit of work on her. I dry brushed across her headband And then I painted in some of these triangles because that's what I wanted, something, you know, a little different than just dry brushing. I put a little bit of color down the center of the the center of the feather. And in the first video, I mentioned using the light cinnamon, I think it's called. Let's see here. Yeah, light cinnamon. I highlighted her hair in light cinnamon, and I said I was going to put it on her tunic. So I did do that on the back, and then it really didn't show up very much. I have one thin coat on the front of her, but then I didn't really care for it. So I tried, a friend had given me, it's really a beautiful color, but it's a satin finish, and I don't always need a satin finish for things I do. But I thought, well, let me try it. This is called Paprika, and it's Americana brand, and it's a satin finish, and it's really, really a nice color. So I thought I'd dry brush a little bit on that, on her tunic, which I did on the back. And then I dry brushed it with a lighter turquoise color, which I used. It's called Indian Turquoise, Americana Deco Art. And then a darker colored turquoise in her headband. And I'm going to decorate that with some white dots, I think. So I kind of painted that on. I did. I painted that on to give that a more solid look. And for that, I used Desert Turquoise, also Deco Art Americana. And then in the last video I mentioned about doing her lips. I just went ahead and I brushed those. I think I just painted on her little lips there with the light cinnamon. And then except for the highlight, I did do her one eye, and I'll show you how I did that. And then I need to finish up her sleeves. And then I left a portion of the headband so I can show you how I dry brushed that. And then when I get some white out, I think I'm just going to finish up the top of the feather with some white. And then she'll be done. Of course, I haven't done the chair. But this video is mostly to just show you how I dry brush. The first video that I did a tile with a bunch of grapes and some grape leaves on it. So this is just to show you how you would maybe approach a figure if you wanted to use the dry brushing technique. So we're just going to get started. I worked on her a little bit earlier. I think my brushes are probably a little dry, but I'm going to go for it. And I've got a piece of paper toweling here. I've just got a little circle paint palette that I'm going to put my paint in today. I have a little bit of that paprika right there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the front of her tunic. And I'm just dipping my brush, the tip of my brush, which is dry, has not been in any water. And I'm going to rub off most of that paint. And I'm going to just start underneath here on her arms. Now this is a smooth surface, so it's a little harder to dry brush because you don't have anything to catch that paint on. So sometimes it's hard to get a nice finish, a nice even finish. But just remember, as I said in the first video, you can add paint to this technique, but you can't take paint off. Now you could repaint it in your base color, your black or your charcoal, whatever color you use, but after a while that would get tedious. So to err on the side of caution, you just use light layers of paint, and if you don't like how it looks, you just give that a chance to dry, reload your brush, and just go for it. Now she's got a little crease in her arm there, so you don't want to go the direction of the crease. You want to come across the crease and allow that brush to just hit the raised areas of your piece. Of course, you want to be careful as you come in here because you're getting close to her chin. Well, you're not going to be doing this exact piece, but whatever piece you're working on, whether you're working on a rabbit, maybe a chick or a duck for Easter, you may be doing something for out in your yard, or a bird, or a rooster, a dog, a cat, anything. Just remember to go across the texture, not the same direction, across the grain, if you will. I have it a little brighter in the back than I do in the front. So I'm just going to put another coat on. I'm going to go back over to this side. You can see there on the elbow it got a little heavy with the paint. And that was because when I put my brush to the piece, I probably dunked down on it instead of, coming at it with a light stroke. Now you also could come back in here, and I might just do that. I think I have some neon orange. Now this is an Apple Barrel brand, which I don't particularly care for, but that is a neon color. I don't have the orange in Americana. But I'm going to try that and see how that works. Or if you have a pumpkin, or maybe you could mix a light yellow with whatever color, if you were using these colors. Or white, or you could just hit it with some straight white. I don't want that much of a contrast. I just want to pick up some highlights if I can. So once you get this to where you like it, then you just leave it alone and call it finished. I'm just going to put a little, this is probably not in real great shape because I haven't used this in a really long time. Let's see. Yeah, I might be able to, because sometimes, as you know, if you're a painter, you squirt out this acrylic paint and it's not mixed in, and you mostly get that liquidy mixing, whatever they use to mix the paint. And you really only need a little bit. This may not work. This may just kind of like glaze over. Let's see. It just gets a little bit of a highlight. You can see that. It's very dreary here today, so I don't have too much natural light coming into my room. I have all my lights on around my camera. It doesn't always do the trick. And I'm going to put a little bit on her little band here that's holding her feather. Okay. Now we're going to do the same process with the light turquoise. And that, I think I said, is called Indian turquoise. So I have some of that over here. Just put a little bit in. And again, I just, applied a little bit of paint to the end of my brush. And as I've said in other videos, if you can use a paper bag, you can use paper toweling, whatever you have handy. You're just going to rub off most of that paint. And then you're just going to come across the design or the grain or the raised up part of your piece. And then you're just going to bring it up to the color that you like. And be careful if you're working, where you're near a surface like a skin area, face, beak, because you don't want to have to redo your work. At least I don't. I like to get it the way I like it and then finish it up. And I'm just using a real light, gentle back and forth swishing stroke. Now see here, I got it on her hair because I wasn't paying attention, I was talking. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to go over that with some of my light cinnamon, because that will never do for me to have that so you can really see it. So that's about all the color I really want on this little band. And then I'm going to pick up some of my darker turquoise color, which again is desert turquoise. These turquoise colors are really nice. And I did put that on her sleeve as well. Now this time, because I'm painting, I am going to put my brush in my water, and then I'm going to, you know, dab off most of my water because I don't want it to be runny. This brush is a little big. Yeah, I'm not going to work with that one. Let's see, I thought that's the one I used, but I guess I used this smaller one. This one is a low Cornell. It's a #1 round, but you can use whatever you have, and it's the brown bristle soft hair brushes. See, I got something in those. See, I just don't swoosh it. If you're an older gal like myself, and you remember Bob Ross, it used to be on television, that painted, he had a screen. Of course, he was, I think, worked in oils. He had a screen at the bottom of his rinse bucket that he could just, when he swooshed it, it knocked that brush a little bit and knocked all the paint particles off, and then they settled down below the screening. I always thought that would be a wonderful thing to have. So this I'm just painting on because, like I said, I want to put a little design on here. Jazz this up a little bit. And I would paint all this stuff first. Get all my dry brushing done before I would go ahead and, you know, do any design work on my pieces. Now this particular ceramic set, I think I mentioned in the video 1, has a little table and they're sitting on their chairs, and I think there's a couple little animals, and on the table there are little like bowls of vegetables and their plates. The plates were just plain. I think I just put like a little Foltz Craft type of pattern on the plates. But for me, that was always part, you know, mostly the fun of doing the ceramic piece, whether I was doing something for Easter time crafts or Christmas, to add the additional details that just, you know, really made the piece pop. Okay, so that's really kind of a subtle look, but that's what I was thinking I would like. So let me see what I have here that I can let me see if I can use this. Put out a little bit of this cinnamon brown and go back over her hair. And then I also use that for her, the iris of her eye. So same thing, dry brush, hasn't been in any water. I put that in my paint and then rub most of it off. And now I'm going to try to take my time and come in here and get rid of that blue. Now this might take a couple of coats, so it really wasn't paying attention. I was busy talking. It's not always easy to talk into your art and you're trying to talk while you're making your video. So, I mean, that's better, but I think I'm going to have to hit that again. She just looks like she was sun-kissed. Now look at there. It looks like I've got something I splashed on her skin. And it sounds like my husband's home. So, of course, one of the dogs is going crazy. So I just took a little Q-tip, put a little water on there. It looks like I splashed some of my paint. All right, now I'm going to do the other pupil of her eye. And for that, I'm just going to use this little 3/0 round brush. This is a Princeton brush. And in my area in the AC Moores, you can get these very reasonably. I don't know about online. You probably can too. They're only a couple of bucks. And because I'm hard on my brushes, I don't spend a lot of money on my brushes because then I don't feel guilty after I use it for a couple of months. I just pitch it. So it's a soft-haired brush. This is not dry brushing. This is just a regular paint brush, soft hairs. And you can see where I put the white base coat. I just painted that in the little eye socket. And I put out my brown paint, and I'm just going to go and make a circle. You just kind of have to practice. The difficult part is trying to get the eyes to look the same. And I usually don't talk while I do this. I kind of hold my breath. But I always brace my finger on the piece so I can be steady-handed. And I'm trying to do this where you can see it well. And I can see it. And so I just make my little circle. And then I kind of eyeball it to see if it's the same size as the other side. And once I make that circle, then I just fill it in. Now, acrylic paint doesn't take too long to dry. Of course, it depends on your climate and where you are. I keep my craft room a little on the cool side, so some of my things don't dry as quickly as they might at your place. Now I'm going to come back in here while I'm letting that eye dry, get a little more of that light cinnamon. I think I have the right brush. And go back over that blue. Then I'm going to go around this side to try to just blend that in a little bit. Now, if you'd like that to show up a little bit more, you can go back in there with the lighter color, add some white in. But I kind of like it the way it is for my piece, so I'm going to leave it that way. And that feels dry. So I'm going to put on a second coat. And it's just like coloring. I'm just going to fill in that center brown area. And then I'm going to let that dry and come back in and do my pupil. I mean, I need to get a little bit of white paint. Somewhere I have white paint out. Oh, there it is. I'm trying to use up this. I don't have too much left in there. But while I'm waiting for that pupil to dry, I'm going to go ahead and pick out my little stylus or dotter, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use a tool like this. But you could use the end of a toothpick, or if you have the a paintbrush that has a nice little sized end that you can use. I'm going to use this. I think it's really for working with clay and poking holes. I don't know. I picked it up. I think it's a Martha Stewart thing. And I'm going to pull some of this paint out on my, oh, sorry. My husband is home and let the dog in. I'm going to start with a really small end because I could always make it bigger. And I'm just going to add some little dots. And I want to reload my stylus each time that I then approach my piece because I want my dots to be the same size. Some of them I might want to be a little smaller, and then I don't go back to the paint. And then after a while, you want to make sure you wipe off the end of your stylus so that your paint dots don't get larger, because that's a small surface and the paint will start to dry.
Do you want a treat? You want a treat?
So that's what I'll continue to do around the headband. And I was thinking I might put something on her tunic, but I want to make sure I do this around the band of her tunic as well. And then if you find a place where you want to add some dots and you want a smaller dot, you just tap it off on another piece of paper, so you can get that smaller dot. And you can do any kind of design. I just like dots. I think she looks cute. And then I wanted to put a little bit of white on my the top of my feather. So I'm going to use that dry brush, and this is going to have a little blue in it, which is really okay, a little bit of turquoise I should say, which is really okay because I have a little bit of the turquoise in the feather. So I'm just going to hit that real lightly. And then I have to remember that these dots are going to take a few minutes to dry, so I don't want to stick my finger in them. I've done that plenty of time. Alright, so now I'm going to come back in with a little bit of black, again with my small round. Put that in a little bit of water, take off all the excess, load my brush, and then I'm going to do the black circle to make the pupil. Same process, use my pinky finger just to you know, make myself steady. I'm sorry, I have to tip this so I can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to do it at a good angle. And then for some reason for me, I always feel better if I turn the piece upside down. It seems like I can see the circle better when I go to finish it off. And then I'm just filling that in. I think that needs to be a little bigger. I know this isn't really a good angle for you. Doesn't look too bad. And then to do my eyelashes, I like to use a liner brush. And this one's really been used quite a bit. This is also a Princeton liner. This is a 10/0. But I like the liner brushes that have a little bit of a longer bristle. And then I want this filled with some water, and I'm going to go into my black paint and load my brush. And I want that, I don't want it real watery, but you want it more like the consistency of ink. when you want to make a thin line or do eyelashes or eyeliners, you don't want to use the paint straight from the paint jar because it's just too thick and it's not going to move out of your brush the way you want it to. There's definitely a learning curve. You just, you know, if you practice on your work mat, you know, like I have a work mat here that you can practice on, or just get some scrap paper and practice. It's all like a pressure thing. So I like to add just a little bit of water, tip into my paint, swoosh it around, and then what I do is I take the brush. Oh, see how you can see this here, and I drag it through my paint, and as I'm dragging it, I'm just twirling it a little bit to make that come to a nice point. And then you don't want to use a lot of pressure, and you just use it like a pencil. Again, I rest my finger, and these eyes are kind of sunk into her head, so then you just curve around the shape and make that little thin line. And I'm really not pressing very hard because the paint in the brush is kind of loaded in like an ink pen. And sometimes you move the piece rather than your brush. Just like when you're doing some fussy cutting with a pair of scissors, you move the paper and your scissors stay still. So then you want to just make sure you load that up again. And then when I do my lashes, the bottom lashes in particular, I just come back along that line that I put in there, and I'm just going to pull it down on her cheek, kind of like a comma stroke, and I'm just going to use light pressure, and then as I push down, I just push and drag, and let me see if I can show you this way. Well, maybe I can do it on this. So I did that little line at the bottom of her eye. I'm just going to come back on that line, light pressure, follow the line, I just pull down, and as I pull down, as I get to the bottom of that comma stroke, I just lift the brush up. Pull down and lift up. Pull down and lift up. And then the top part of the eye, again, I'm going to make sure I've got nice movement of that paint, and I'll flip her around and I do it upside down. I again do the comma strokes. I usually do one tall one in the center, and just hit. Now see, my I got a post-it pad here, and when I went to do it, the post-it pad went whang, so I've got that crazy stroke there. And then you want the lashes to go smaller as it gets to the corner of the eye and then the outside of the eye. But you can put on as many or as little as you want. You may not want lashes, and that's fine too. But if you do something like I did here, you just come back in, reload your brush, and just make that line a little heavier. And kind of, you know, try to fix that if you should happen to, you know, there's usually a fix. And anybody that you would show this piece to, they're just going to think you're amazing. And they're not going to say, oh boy, did you ruin that eyelash? They're not going to know. All right, so now I'm going to go to the piece. Putting more paint on my brush, a little bit of water. I'm getting that inky consistency. I'm dragging my brush through the paint puddle and twirling it as I go to make a nice point. I've got my finger, my pinky finger, steadying my hand. And I'll get a good angle for you here. And I'm just going to go on that black line and just start pulling little eyelashes out. All right. And then I'm going to turn her upside down. You can do it the other way. For me, it works better if I turn the piece upside down. And then if you feel like your brush is gotten too much water in it, you just take the edge of it on a paper towel. It sucks out that excess. And I want to make sure my eyelashes are curving the right way. And I always, like I said, I try to do a taller one in the center. And I'm trying to get close to the camera, but far enough away so my glasses, I can see what I'm doing. Again, not real heavy pressure. Making that little comma stroke. And then I'm going to try to make them smaller as I go towards the back, the outside corner of her eye, and then the inside corner of her eye, same thing. Now on this eye, I don't know if you can see it, it looks like it's set in a little bit more than the other eye, or I didn't get my black up in there very well. So I'm just going to add a little black. And then the only thing we have left to do is put a highlighter in. And you can use a dotter, or you can use your brush. I'm going to use my little stylus again. I'm going to just tip into that white. And I like to put it towards the top. And now see, I can see on here, maybe you can see it too. I'm not sure if you can. But I went into the white paint, was a little dry. And I think I'm dreaming trying to get you to see this. But it's all clumped up around the dotter. So see, you want to be aware of that, because that'll be a big lump in her eye. You don't want that. So here we go. Center top, just a little tap. Reload your stylus. Center top, a little tap. And there she is. She's a little cutie. So that's really all that I have. You could add other decorating marks on clothing, you know, anything you feel comfortable with or you think you might like. But that's basically it. That's how I do my dry brushing, and then go ahead and decorate my ceramic pieces. I've enjoyed ceramics for many, many years. It's just a medium that I have a hard time getting my hands on these days, and so I've moved on to some other things. But if you have any questions, please leave me a message, and I'll answer you as best as I can. I hope you found this helpful. Please give me a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in one of my other videos. I appreciate your watching. Thanks so much, and you have a good day. Bye-bye.